Something is very, very wrong in Georgia right now. T.I.'s son, King Harris, just 21 years old, has found himself at the center of a story that has shocked fans, insiders, and even casual observers. What was supposed to be a straightforward arrest has turned into something that feels straight out of a crime drama. According to multiple sources, King was attacked inside a facility under circumstances that many are calling suspicious, if not outright planned. Medical records and eyewitness reports indicate that his skull was cracked, several bones in his face were shattered, and he was left unconscious on the floor. The weapon allegedly used? A padlock wrapped in a sock, a classic improvised tool meant for maximum damage. But what has everyone talking and what makes this story creep into truly chilling territory is the fact that every single security camera in the block reportedly went dark just minutes before the attack. This wasn't a small glitch in one corner of the building. This was a blackout covering the entire area, and the cameras only came back on once the damage had been done. Tonight, we're diving into the full story, exploring every angle, every theory, and every whisper that's circulating about what happened to King Harris, what it means for his family, and why the situation is raising serious red flags for everyone following along. Let's be clear. King Harris getting arrested wasn't the shocking part. The real surprise was how he responded to it. King, son of Atlanta legends T.I. and Tiny, has grown up in the spotlight, and for years the media has cast him as a privileged young man headed down the wrong path. When the news broke that he was picked up for a missed court date and a minor DUI, people didn't gasp, they shrugged and said, "Of course." But what grabbed attention was his reaction afterward. Instead of stepping back quietly or trying to keep a low profile, he leaned into it, showing a defiant, reckless attitude towards law enforcement and anyone questioning his choices. Social media posts, heated statements, and his blunt comments about the police all painted a picture of someone who had nothing to lose, someone who wasn't afraid to push the boundaries. And while some dismissed it as youthful defiance or bad judgment, others saw it as the beginning of a much darker story, a story that would unfold in ways no one could have anticipated. Inside that Georgia facility, the situation escalated far beyond what anyone could have predicted. The medical reports that surfaced online describe a scene more consistent with a premeditated assault than a jailhouse scuffle. King's skull was cracked, multiple facial bones were shattered, and he was left unconscious on the floor, apparently the victim of repeated, deliberate blows. And then there's the weapon itself, a padlock wrapped in a sock, which is widely known among correctional insiders as a weapon designed to inflict maximum damage. These kinds of tools aren't improvised in the heat of the moment. They're made ahead of time, carefully hidden, and pulled out at precisely the right moment. But the detail that truly raises alarm bells is the camera blackout that occurred just before the attack. Every single camera in the block reportedly went offline 6 minutes before the incident, and only came back online once medics arrived. In a facility where every inch of the building is supposed to be under constant surveillance, this kind of simultaneous failure across an entire block is extremely rare. Officials have called it a power relay error, but former correctional officers and experts in prison security immediately question this explanation. The timing, the scope, and the nature of the blackout all suggest something far more intentional than mere technical failure. And this is what makes the situation feel like a carefully orchestrated setup rather than a random incident.
King wasn't just sitting quietly in his cell waiting for his release date. Multiple sources close to him say that he was paying attention to what was happening around him. He reportedly noticed guards sneaking in contraband, turning a blind eye to certain inmates running extortion schemes, and selectively showing favoritism to those with power. For someone like King, who grew up in the public eye and knows the stakes of having influence, these observations were significant. Rumor has it that he was even considering reaching out to his lawyer to document some of the corruption he witnessed, complete with names, dates, and details. In a system built on silence, even hinting at exposing the truth can put someone in danger. And insiders believe that might have been exactly what happened. The moment King started talking, the moment he threatened to make these issues public, someone decided to send a message, violent and unambiguous. What makes this even more concerning is that the attack wasn't a back-and-forth fight. The injuries and the weapon used suggest restraint and intent, as if the goal wasn't self-defense or retaliation, but to punish, intimidate, or silence him entirely. Then there's the question of motive. Two theories are being discussed by those familiar with the case. The first suggests that King himself was the target. He was speaking too loudly, seeing too much, and allegedly threatening to expose systemic problems inside the facility. In that context, the attack could be interpreted as a warning: stop talking or face the consequences. The second theory, however, goes much deeper and darker. Some insiders believe that the attack wasn't just about King, it was about sending a message to T.I. himself. The Harris family has long-standing ties in music, business, and the entertainment industry, and with those ties come enemies. In this interpretation, King's placement in the facility, combined with the blackout and the brutal nature of the attack, might have been intended to exert pressure on his father, to remind him that no one is untouchable. Either way, the story stops sounding like a minor incident and starts feeling like a coordinated, high-stakes operation. The human side of this story is devastating. Just weeks before the incident, King had entered a new chapter of his life. He had just become a father, sharing his excitement with family, friends, and fans online. He spoke openly about the joys of fatherhood, his hopes for his child, and his desire to turn his life around. In interviews, he even talked about wanting to be bigger than Michael Jackson, demonstrating a newfound focus on music, redemption, and legacy. Yet, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. What should have been a joyful, celebratory period became a nightmare. The young man who was smiling on camera, proud and optimistic, was suddenly fighting for his life in a hospital bed. The contrast between those moments underscores just how shocking and sudden this event was, and it raises uncomfortable questions about whether this was a coincidence or if someone intentionally disrupted his life at the worst possible time. The Harris family has a long history of dealing with public scrutiny, legal battles, and persistent rumors. T.I. and Tiny, for example, have faced long-running defamation claims, most notably from influencer Sabrina Peterson, who alleged misconduct and trafficking, claims the family consistently denied and ultimately won in court. Yet even after the courts ruled in their favor, she returned to social media, hinting at federal attention and prompting new rounds of speculation and judgment from the public. So when King was attacked and the cameras reportedly went offline, the internet quickly began to connect the dots, suggesting that the Harris family's ongoing controversies may have made King a target. People started asking whether this was about one young man in one cell, or whether it was tied to decades of enemies, public battles, and grudges that the family has accumulated over time. The weapon used during the attack is one of the clearest indicators that this was planned. A padlock wrapped in a sock is not something someone throws together in a moment of anger. It is a weapon designed for precision and maximum damage, crafted ahead of time, hidden, and ready to be deployed at exactly the right moment. This is why so many insiders see this as proof of a setup. The nature of the weapon, combined with the camera blackout and the timing of the assault, paints a picture that is far more organized and calculated than a simple jail fight. People familiar with correctional facilities have remarked that such attacks are almost never spontaneous. Someone had to know what they were doing, when, and why. Outside the hospital, the world is reacting with a mix of fear, anger, and support. Fans, neighbors, and people who have followed King's journey for years are showing up with candles, signs, and chants, demanding answers and justice. T.I. has publicly stated that he wants the truth, not vengeance, while Tiny has asked everyone to keep praying. But behind these measured statements, sources say the family is juggling fear, anger, and frustration, working tirelessly to protect King and prepare for legal action. Private investigators and attorneys have reportedly been brought in to assess the facility, the staff, and the conditions that made the attack possible. For the Harris family, this is not just about one young man being attacked. It's about the system itself and the failure of that system to protect someone placed in its care. However, King Harris's arrest itself was not a shock to many observers. Serving a short sentence for a DUI and a missed court date in September 2024, King had a relatively minor criminal record. However, his response to the arrest raised eyebrows. In the days following, he was reportedly defiant, making public statements, criticizing law enforcement, and expressing frustration with the system. Many commentators noted that King had grown up privileged, shielded by his famous parents, and questioned why he was pursuing a path that seemed increasingly risky. Yet these reactions are part of a larger context. King Harris is not a hardened criminal. He's a young man in the early stages of adulthood, navigating the pressures of fame, family, and personal responsibility. His defiance, while controversial, is part of what has made this story so compelling.
The circumstances surrounding King Harris's injuries are alarming. According to medical documents and eyewitness reports, the incident involved a lock-sock, a type of improvised weapon. The assault resulted in a fractured skull, multiple facial fractures, and left King unconscious on the floor. What sets this case apart from typical prison altercations is the reported blackout of security cameras covering the cell block. Officials claim this was due to a power relay error, but former correctional officers have stated that a complete failure affecting every camera in a block simultaneously is highly unusual. The cameras reportedly went dark 6 minutes before the attack and only returned online 5 minutes after emergency medical personnel arrived. In a facility where surveillance is intended to be continuous, such a timing gap raises questions about whether the blackout was accidental or deliberate. King's incarceration began quietly, with little media attention. However, sources inside the facility say he was outspoken and observed questionable activity. He reportedly noticed guards allowing contraband to circulate and turning a blind eye to extortion schemes run by certain inmates. One insider claims King had considered contacting his lawyer to report these activities formally. This has led to speculation that his injuries may have been intended as a warning, either to him personally or to his family. Investigators are currently divided on motive. Some believe the assault was a direct response to King's behavior, intended to silence him. Others suggest it may have been a broader message directed toward his father, T.I., who has faced numerous public and legal controversies over the years. The timing of this incident is particularly troubling. Just weeks prior, King had become a father, sharing moments of joy and pride with his family. Social media posts documented these celebrations, showing a young man excited about fatherhood and looking to move forward in life. Within days, King was fighting for his life in a hospital bed. The contrast between these moments underscores the suddenness and severity of the attack, and it has intensified public concern. Additionally, the Harris family has been dealing with renewed attention from ongoing legal disputes. Earlier in 2024, T.I. and Tiny were involved in a defamation case with influencer Sabrina Peterson, who alleged misconduct and reputational harm. While the court ultimately dismissed her appeal, her attempts to reintroduce the case earlier this year reignited old rumors and cast renewed scrutiny on the family. The coincidence of these events has fueled speculation that King's assault may be connected to broader pressures on the family. As investigations continue, many questions remain unanswered. Officials maintain that the camera blackout was a technical malfunction. However, experts in prison security have stated that such a synchronized failure would be unlikely without human intervention. Additionally, some reports suggest that certain staff members were quietly reassigned after the incident, rather than facing formal discipline. Observers interpret this as a potential effort to control the narrative and limit accountability. Inside the hospital, King remains in critical condition, undergoing emergency treatment to relieve pressure on his brain. Doctors have described his injuries as consistent with repeated blows while restrained, suggesting the assault was deliberate rather than spontaneous. With no available footage and limited first-hand accounts, the investigation faces significant challenges. Outside the hospital, public concern has grown rapidly.
Fans have gathered with candles, signs, and chants, demanding answers. T.I. has publicly stated that he wants the truth rather than vengeance, while Tiny has requested prayers and support. Despite their measured statements, insiders report that the family is navigating intense fear and suspicion behind the scenes. Some believe King's assault was retaliation for his observations of corruption inside the facility, while others argue it may have been intended as a warning to his father. This uncertainty has magnified public interest and led to widespread speculation online, where commentators and fans debate whether the attack was orchestrated, coincidental, or connected to larger issues facing the Harris family. In the weeks leading up to his arrest, King Harris had begun making efforts to rebuild his public image. On August 21, 2024, he appeared on the Regina Carter podcast, discussing fatherhood, music, and personal growth. He spoke about aspirations of becoming a significant figure in music and leaving a lasting legacy. At the time, these comments seemed aspirational. In retrospect, they appear almost haunting, as he was shortly thereafter involved in a life-threatening incident. Less than a month later, King was detained on an old warrant and transferred to Pickens County, a facility where his family name offered no protection. Sources suggest that King's confidence and openness about his observations may have played a role in making him a target. The Harris family has long been no stranger to public scrutiny and legal disputes. T.I., a prominent figure in music and entertainment, has faced multiple allegations over the years, including weapons charges, defamation claims, and personal controversies. While he has largely prevailed in legal battles, the family remains a frequent subject of rumor and speculation. For many observers, King's assault represents a continuation of this pattern, an instance where fame and notoriety intersect with vulnerability and risk. Sources familiar with the family suggest that King's high-profile identity may have made him a symbolic target, intended to send a message regarding the Harris family's public and private disputes.
The nature of the weapon used in the attack, the lock-in sock, has become a focal point of speculation. Medical reports confirm that the injuries inflicted were consistent with repeated, targeted blows. Correctional experts have explained that a lock-in sock is not a weapon improvised in the moment. Instead, it is typically crafted ahead of time, indicating premeditation. Combined with the camera blackout and reports of prior arguments in the facility, the evidence has led many to conclude that the assault was a planned act rather than a spontaneous altercation. As the investigation continues, multiple questions remain unanswered. Who authorized the guards to stand down? Why did the power relay fail precisely on the wing where King was located? And why was a young, non-violent inmate placed among others with known histories of aggression? Each unanswered question adds to the perception that this may have been deliberate. Meanwhile, the Harris family has reportedly hired private investigators to track the timeline of events, and legal counsel has been engaged to assess potential accountability. Public scrutiny combined with the family's proactive efforts underscores the seriousness of the situation and the challenges inherent in pursuing clarity within a complex correctional system. King Harris remains in critical condition. Doctors performed emergency surgery to relieve pressure on his brain, and although his vital signs have stabilized, he is unresponsive. Physicians describe his injuries as consistent with repeated blows while restrained. Not a back-and-forth fight, but a punishment designed to cause serious harm. And with the cameras allegedly offline, there is no footage to corroborate or clarify what happened. This leaves the story shrouded in mystery and fuels further speculation that this was more than just an accident. It was an orchestrated attack meant to silence, intimidate, or send a message. As of now, the state claims an internal review is underway, but with no footage, no detailed timeline, and no clear public explanation, these assurances do little to calm the public or the family. In response, the Harris family has reportedly tightened security, both online and in the real world, and is preparing to pursue legal avenues to hold the facility accountable. This story has quickly shifted from a tragic celebrity headline to something much bigger, an intersection of fame, power, and a system that seems all too comfortable operating in the dark. For the Harris family, King's attack is not an isolated event. It is a reminder of the vulnerabilities they have always faced, even as they try to protect themselves, their reputation, and their children. King Harris's story is still unfolding. Questions remain about who had access to the cameras, who orchestrated the attack, and whether this was truly about him or someone else entirely. But what's undeniable is this: a young man, just beginning his journey as a father and a musician, was placed in a situation that almost cost him his life. The weapon, the timing, the blackout, and the family history all point to something far more sinister than a simple jail scuffle. Until the truth comes out, the Harris family and the public are left with the chilling reminder that sometimes, in a system designed to monitor everything, the things that happen out of sight can be the most dangerous of all.